This is why the rich keep getting richer. It's not luck, inheritance, or some cosmic favoritism from the stars above. No, it is law, a quiet law that governs human results just as gravity governs falling apples. A law that operates whether you're aware of it or not. And just like gravity, if you ignore it, you pay the price. And if you master it, it serves you faithfully, predictably, and without fail. Most people misunderstand wealth. They think it's a matter of how much money someone earns, or what kind of job they hold, or the price tag on their possessions. But true wealth, the kind that compounds, the kind that builds over time and passes from one generation to the next, is the result of something much deeper. It's a result of how a person thinks. That is where everything begins. If you trace the source of every fortune, every estate, every success story that has endured the test of time, you'll find the same starting point, the mind of the individual. Not the economy, not politics, not external circumstances, but thought. Now, consider this. If you placed $1 million in the hands of a man with a poverty mindset, that money would vanish slowly or quickly, but vanish it would. Why? Because wealth cannot stay where it is not understood. But if you place a clear, definite idea in the mind of a man who understands wealth, its laws, its responsibilities, its growth patterns, that idea can over time turn into $1 million and more. This isn't magic, it's not theory, it's observable, repeatable truth. And if you find this message awakening something in you, then let me invite you now. Pause for a moment, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment when a truth resonates with you. This is not entertainment, this is your future. And I want you to have every tool necessary to build the life you were born for. Now let's examine the first reason the rich keep getting richer. They live by the law of conscious direction. They don't drift. They don't wander through life like leaves in the wind, reacting to everything, surprised by everything. No, they set a course. They write down their goals. They define their direction in life so clearly that they become like ships with rudders, cutting through the ocean of distraction, delay, and doubt. And when the winds of circumstance blow, as they always do, they adjust the sails, but they never lose the destination. Most people never do this. They live reactively. They wait for the world to tell them what to want, what to fear, what to settle for. But the wealthy, the builders, the contributors, they decide. And once they decide, the world begins to reorganize itself around that decision. Opportunities appear where once there were none. Ideas begin to flow. The subconscious mind, your invisible engine, starts to work on your behalf. That is the power of a clear mental direction. And the beautiful part is, anyone can do this. Anyone who has a mind, a pen, and the will to use them. Wealth is not just a collection of money. It is a reflection of inner order. A person who brings order to their thoughts begins to bring order to their results. Have you noticed that the rich often seem to grow richer effortlessly, while others can't seem to make ends meet no matter how hard they try? It is not effort alone that produces results. It is right effort, properly directed, consistently applied. The person who understands this moves from chaos to control, from reaction to creation. He no longer waits for the world to hand him his due. He begins to manufacture his future from the inside out. He no longer looks for the next lucky break. He becomes the break. And here's something worth remembering. Wealth does not start with the bank. It starts with belief. A deep, unshakable belief that says, I am the source of value. I am the captain of my thoughts. I am responsible for what happens next. The rich become richer because they don't just work harder, they think longer. They take time to sit with their ideas, to mold their plans, to listen for that quiet voice within that says, here's the next step. And when they act with precision. They conserve their energy. They master their attention. They don't let the noise of the world dictate the music of their mind, and they always invest in their most important asset, themselves. While others spend hours watching entertainment or scrolling past someone else's life, the builder is reading, planning, thinking, reviewing, and executing. The rich grow richer because they respect the clock. They know that minutes compound just as money does, and so they spend their time wisely, knowing it is the currency of every future they'll ever create. There's also this. The wealthy understand that money is not the goal. Money is the reward, the fruit, the harvest. The real goal is service, contribution, usefulness, and the more useful a person becomes, the more the world rewards them, not because the world is fair, but because the world is wired that way. You and I are surrounded by needs, problems, desires, and opportunities. And the person who steps in and solves those problems with discipline, with value, with integrity, that person becomes necessary. And when you become necessary, compensation follows naturally. Most people chase money. The rich chase usefulness. That's the difference. If you want to join them, stop asking, how can I get rich? And start asking, how can I become invaluable? Because when you become a person of value, wealth begins to follow you instead of you chasing it down the street. The rich get richer because they do not fear money. They respect it, they study it, they command it, but they are not controlled by it. They do not worship it nor run from it. They see it as it truly is, an obedient servant. And like any servant, money follows orders. It goes where it is sent. It grows where it is planted. It obeys the commands of clarity and consistency. And most of all, it avoids confusion and chaos. If your financial life is disordered, it will reflect your inner world. If it is scattered, so are your thoughts. But when you bring clarity to your intentions, order to your plans, and faith to your actions, money begins to move, not overnight, but with certainty. This is why the poor stay poor, not because of lack, but because of disconnection from this truth. And this is why the rich grow richer, because their relationship with money is rooted in wisdom, not emotion, understanding, not fear. So if you're listening today and you want to begin this journey, start with this law: clarity attracts wealth, confusion repels it. Take time tonight to write down your goal, define it, make it so clear that a stranger could read it and know exactly what you want. Then act in alignment with that vision every day. Even the smallest move counts: a penny saved, a distraction ignored, a book read, a plan made. You are shaping your financial future in every moment, whether you know it or not. The question is, are you doing it with intention, or are you doing it by default? Remember, the world responds not to need but to clarity, not to wishes but to direction. Now I want you to take this law and anchor it into your being. Write it down, speak it aloud, and if it resonates, I want you to comment it below, not just as a comment, but as a commitment to yourself. Say, I am one with clarity and order, a magnet to wealth and purpose. That's your declaration. Say it, write it, live it, and remember, this is only the beginning. In the next part, we'll go deeper into how the rich multiply their wealth while others deplete it, often without realizing why. If this message stirred something inside you, let me know by sharing it, subscribing to the channel, and declaring your law below. There is a second reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it has nothing to do with money in the beginning. It has everything to do with identity. The wealthy have crafted an internal picture of who they are, one of capability, vision, and purpose, and they act in accordance with that image. It is not arrogance, it is not fantasy, it is deliberate mental construction. Before they earned the wealth, they became the person who could handle the wealth, and that distinction changes everything. A man who sees himself as broke, unlucky, or just trying to get by will subconsciously make choices that reinforce that picture, even if opportunity is handed to him. But a man who sees himself as a steward of abundance, a creator of value, a commander of resources, he will find a way, build a way, or clear a way through. And the law here is simple: you never rise higher than your self-image. That is why the poor, even when helped, often remain poor, and why the wealthy, even when they lose everything, often rebuild it again. The outer world reflects the inner picture, always. Now ask yourself, what kind of image are you holding? When you think of your future self, is it one of power and clarity, or one of stress and survival? Because whether you realize it or not, that image is driving your actions. The rich spend years, sometimes decades, refining their self-concept. They read books that elevate their vision. They surround themselves with others who challenge and stretch their standard. They make investments not just in stocks or businesses, but in their own minds. Every single day, they are reinforcing the truth of who they are becoming. They listen to truth. They shut out noise. They feed their minds with precision. And so gradually, their inner world begins to harden like concrete, firm, focused, and immovable. They no longer ask, can I? They already are. And their results are simply catching up to the identity they've already adopted. Let me challenge you here. Take 5 minutes today, just 5. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and see the version of yourself who already lives the life you dream of. Where does he live? How does she walk into a room? What does he believe about himself? What kind of choices does she make daily? Most people never do this. They drift into identity by default, shaped by media, culture, and fear. But the rich? They define it with surgical clarity. They program it through repetition, and that identity becomes the mold through which all their results are poured. They do not try to get rich. They live as if they already are rich in discipline, clarity, value, and direction, and slowly, the outer world adjusts to match the inner script. Wealth follows structure, and identity provides the blueprint for that structure. Just like a house cannot be built without a design, a wealthy life cannot be built without an identity that supports it. So many people try to build prosperity on a mental foundation of lack, fear, or self-doubt. It does not work. Even when success shows up, it crumbles under the weight of an unworthy self-concept. You must become the vessel that can hold abundance, and to do that, you must let go of the thoughts, habits, and beliefs that leak your power. Ask yourself, what would a wealthy version of me do today? What would he say no to? What would she prioritize? That question alone, asked and answered daily, can begin to change your life. Here's the difference that few ever notice. The rich don't ask if success is possible, they assume it is, and from that assumption they take bold, strategic, and aligned action. But most people live in hesitation. They spend days, weeks, even years, circling the same fears, analyzing every outcome, waiting for conditions to be perfect. But wealth is not built in hesitation, it's built in motion. Aligned, confident, persistent motion. The wealthy use fear as fuel. They understand risk, but they do not bow to it. They take calculated steps, not reckless ones. And each step, even if it brings failure, brings data, and that data becomes wisdom. Over time, the rich accumulate a kind of mental wealth, the ability to see further, act faster, and decide clearer, and that advantage compounds over time until the gap becomes unbridgeable. Identity is the filter through which all information flows. It determines how you respond to setbacks, how you interpret opportunity, and how you carry yourself in every room. If you walk into a business meeting thinking you don't belong, guess what? You don't. Not because the others say so, but because you said so. The mind obeys the image, always. And so the wealthy engineer their image with care. They don't fake it, they build it. And as that identity grows stronger, so does their confidence, clarity, and certainty. This is why the rich seem so unshaken, why they seem to operate with calm. It's not that they have no doubt, it's that their identity overrides it. They are grounded in who they've chosen to become, and from that grounding comes power. Let me give you a law to remember. Comment this below if you feel it in your spirit. I act as the person I wish to become. I think, move, and speak in alignment with abundance. That is your code. That is your anchor. Every time fear creeps in, repeat it. Every time you feel like shrinking, repeat it. Let it become part of you. Because once your identity changes, your results must change to match it. The world cannot ignore a person who walks in full alignment with their highest vision. And that, my friend, is a universal law. In the next part of this series, we will uncover one of the most overlooked secrets of wealth, why the rich keep systems and the poor keep habits. If you're gaining clarity from this message, let it be known. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, write down your law below. Let's not just listen to truth, let's live it. There is a third reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it is one of the most misunderstood principles in all of personal growth: systems over habits. Most people are taught to develop good habits, wake up early, save money, avoid distractions, and these are useful. But the rich understand something deeper. They don't just rely on habit, they build systems. A habit is something you do, a system is something that does it for you. It is automatic, it is engineered. It is designed to produce a consistent outcome without relying on willpower or emotion. And the wealthier someone becomes, the more you'll notice. They systematize everything: their money, their decision-making, their health, their schedule, their thinking. They remove friction and replace it with frameworks. They don't wonder what to do next. They already know. And when uncertainty is removed, energy is preserved, momentum becomes natural, progress becomes inevitable. Think about your own life for a moment. Where do you rely too heavily on motivation? Where are you trying to will yourself into results day after day, rather than engineering your environment to support your vision? The rich don't waste effort doing the same mental heavy lifting every day. They automate clarity. They pre-decide their priorities. They batch decisions. They delegate distractions. And by doing so, they preserve their mental energy for the highest leverage tasks. You see, the poor and the drifting live in reaction. They respond to the world as it comes, but the rich initiate. They set the terms. They install systems that carry the burden. This is not about working harder, it's about working smarter, with direction and order, and that, over time, is what makes all the difference. Let's take the example of money. Most people think budgeting is the solution to their financial problems, but budgeting is a habit. It requires daily attention, constant discipline. Systems, on the other hand, automate your financial success. The rich create rules, automated savings, automated investing, pre-allocated spending, and then they follow the system. It doesn't matter if they feel like it. The The decision was made once, and the system does the rest. This principle works in every area. The rich don't wake up wondering if they should work out. They have a system. They don't wonder what to read next. It's already cued. They don't wait to feel inspired. They have a system that triggers focus, action, and feedback. And slowly but surely, their life begins to compound in ways most people cannot comprehend. Now here's something to write down. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your systems. Most people want to be rich. Few want to install the systems that make wealth inevitable, and that's why the rich keep getting richer. Their results are not tied to emotion. Their results are not based on perfect days. Their results are engineered by design. If they get tired, the system carries the load. If they get distracted, the system corrects course. If they make a mistake, the system catches it. And over time, this discipline creates freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from escape, but the kind that comes from mastery. Look around at any high-performing business, athlete, or creator. You will find systems beneath the surface, routines, checklists, processes, feedback loops, review mechanisms, and those systems are boring. They are not glamorous, they are not exciting, but they are effective. And the wealthy embrace this truth. They don't chase dopamine, they chase results. And if that requires repetition, so be it. If that requires planning, so be it. They trade the thrill of variety for the power of predictability, because predictability is what builds momentum, and momentum, once sustained, begins to separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. So what's the first step for you? Begin with a single area of your life: money, time, health, content, learning, and ask yourself, what system can I install that removes friction and guarantees progress? Maybe it's a recurring transfer to savings. Maybe it's a scheduled reading hour. Maybe it's a no-phone rule during creative work. Whatever it is, make it simple, then repeatable, then automatic. Don't wait for motivation. Don't rely on inspiration. Build the system, then let the system build you. That is how the rich create wealth, even when they're tired, uninspired, or under pressure. Because the system does not depend on how they feel. It only depends on what they've already decided. And here's a truth to engrave in your consciousness. The quality of your systems will determine the quality of your life. Not your intentions, not your dreams, not your talent, your systems. The rich know this, and that's why they systematize their growth. They build inputs that guarantee outputs. They create levers that multiply effort. They install rituals that trigger identity, and they never stop refining. While others chase hacks, the rich refine systems. And while others get discouraged by inconsistency, the rich trust the framework they've built. That is why wealth begins to appear predictable, because it is the natural consequence of consistent, systematized behavior over time. Now I want you to declare this in the comments. Let it be your personal creed. Say, I don't wait, I systemize. My success is automated, disciplined, and inevitable. That is how we begin. That is how you join the small group of builders who no longer rely on luck, mood, or guesswork. Systems are freedom. Systems are clarity. Systems are how the rich keep getting richer. In Part 4, we'll explore the mindset that turns failure into feedback and why the rich see losing as a step forward, not a step back. If this message is helping bring structure to your vision, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more and declare your system below, because when you declare, you begin to believe. And when belief is paired with structure, you become unstoppable. There is a fourth reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it's not because they avoid failure, but because they reinterpret it. They see failure not as a dead end, but as feedback. To most people, failure feels like shame, a reason to quit, proof that they're not good enough. But to the wealthy, those who build, those who climb, failure is instruction. It is a compass. It reveals where the system needs adjustment, where the thinking was flawed, where the preparation was thin. The rich do not personalize failure. They study it, they document it, they grow from it. And because of this mental discipline, each failure becomes fertile soil for future wisdom. Most people avoid failure like it's poison, but the wealthy embrace it like a professor. And in that classroom, they take notes that the masses never see. You can trace the rise of any self-made success story, and behind it you will find a graveyard of failed businesses, broken partnerships, bad decisions, missed shots. But what matters is not that they failed, it's that they refused to let failure define them. They gave it meaning, and then they moved forward with new insight. Here's the truth. Failure is inevitable, but suffering is optional. What determines your growth is not whether you fall, it's how you frame the fall. The rich don't say, I failed, therefore I'm a failure. They say, that didn't work. Why? What do I need to learn? How can I adjust and try again with better data? This reframe is powerful because it strips failure of its emotional sting. It turns it into a tool, a source of precision. While most people spiral into discouragement after a loss, the rich collect lessons, and that mental posture gives them an unfair advantage. They get to iterate faster, they recover stronger, they build calluses that others never develop. And when you do this over time, you become virtually unfazed by setbacks. You develop what I call resilient momentum, the ability to keep going with intelligence even in the face of resistance. Let me tell you something critical. No matter how well you plan, you will misstep. You will overlook things. You will make assumptions that don't hold up in the real world. That is part of the process. But the poor mindset interprets this as punishment. The rich mindset interprets it as tuition, a necessary cost to earn the wisdom that leads to better outcomes. This shift alone can change your life, because if you no longer fear failure, you begin to take calculated action. You stop overanalyzing, you start moving, and in that movement, even if imperfect, lies the seeds of growth. The rich have failed more times than the average person has even tried. And that alone explains why they get ahead, because while others are hesitating, they are testing. While others are doubting, they are adjusting. While others are stalling, they are learning. Now let's talk about emotional control. The rich keep getting richer because they do not let their feelings dictate their response to failure. They may feel frustration, disappointment, even embarrassment, but they don't stay there. They process fast, they reflect deeply. Then they return to execution. Emotional discipline is the bridge between failure and breakthrough. And this doesn't mean suppressing your emotions, it means mastering them. Most people take failure personally because they are identified with the outcome. But the rich separate identity from result. They see themselves as evolving beings, always adapting, always improving. The outcome is feedback, not finality. And this mindset is what allows them to get back up again and again, each time more refined, more clear, more dangerous. You must understand, your response to failure determines the speed of your ascent. Every time you stall, complain, or internalize the loss, you delay your progress. But every time you reflect, document, and adjust, you accelerate it. The rich build debrief loops into their systems. After every project, every launch, every risk, they ask, what went well, what didn't, what will we do differently next time? They're not seeking perfection, they're seeking iteration. And over time, these iterations stack into brilliance. That's how the rich refine their path, through repetition, reflection, and relentless improvement. It's not always glamorous, but it works. Here's a law for you to adopt. If it resonates, comment it below and let it anchor your new posture. Say, failure doesn't define me, it refines me. I grow stronger, sharper, and smarter each time. That's not just a sentence, it's a declaration, one that frees you from the prison of perfectionism and launches you into momentum. Because the sooner you make peace with failure, the sooner you'll stop fearing it. And when fear of failure dies, action takes its place. And action, repeated with reflection, becomes inevitable progress. I'll leave you with this image. The wealthy walk through failure like miners through mud. They know that beneath the mess lies something valuable. They dig, they strain, they get dirty, but they emerge with gold. The average man sees the mud and walks away. The rich, they lean in, because they know that every mistake contains a map to deeper insight, stronger systems, and greater capacity. They don't resent failure, they extract from it, and that makes all the difference. In Part 5, we'll dive into how the rich leverage relationships not just as contacts, but as compounding assets, and why your circle may be either your greatest anchor or your greatest accelerant. If you've taken something valuable from this message, share it. Speak your law below. And remember, failure is not the enemy. Stagnation is. There is a fifth reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it lies in their relationships. Not in the number of contacts in their phone, not in the volume of handshakes at conferences, but in the quality, alignment, and intentionality behind the people they allow into their sphere. You see, the wealthy understand that people are either compounding assets or silent liabilities. Every person in your life is shaping you, your standards, your habits, your language, your outlook. The rich do not leave this to chance. They build what I call a strategic environment, a circle of influence that elevates their thinking, reinforces their vision, and calls them to a higher version of themselves. And if someone threatens that standard through toxicity, complacency, or contradiction, they create distance, not out of pride, but out of discipline. Because they know this truth, you will always become like the people you tolerate. The poor mindset is often ruled by loyalty to dysfunction, staying close to those who feel familiar, even if they drain energy, plant doubt, or mock growth. But the rich outgrow that trap. They realize that your life expands or contracts to the level of your relationships. That's why they surround themselves with builders. People who think long-term, people who act with integrity, people who speak possibility, not limitation. It doesn't mean everyone in their circle is wealthy, but everyone in their circle is growing. And that mutual growth creates a kind of collective momentum that multiplies progress for everyone involved. They don't network for clout. They align for compound effect. Now here's the key distinction. Average people view relationships emotionally. The rich view them strategically. They know that every conversation is an input, every environment a programming station for the mind, and so they become ruthless curators of who gets access to their attention. They value peace over drama, vision over gossip, depth over noise, and because of this they create power circles, relationships built not just on shared history, but shared destiny. People who push each other, refine each other, sharpen each other. It's not always comfortable, but it is always fruitful. If you look closely, you'll find that behind every extraordinary person is a circle of excellence. Partners, mentors, friends, advisors, who amplify their trajectory and call out the best in them. Ask yourself this: who in your life pulls you forward? Who in your life would challenge your excuses instead of agreeing with them? Who celebrates your ambition instead of shrinking it? If you can name these people, cherish them, invest in them, show up for them. And if your list feels empty, don't despair. Start building it. It begins with how you show up, because like attracts like, discipline attracts discipline, vision attracts vision. When you operate at a higher frequency, people at that same frequency begin to notice, and slowly your circle shifts, not overnight, but steadily, intentionally, because you're no longer trying to fit in, you're building a life, and that requires alignment. This is why the rich invest in mentorship. They know that wisdom shortens the distance between confusion and clarity. And they are not too proud to be taught. They seek instruction, they ask questions, they pay for access, because they understand the power of proximity. Standing next to someone who has done what you dream of doing is like stepping into a new reality. Their words recalibrate your thinking, their energy realigns your pace, their standards rewire your expectations. And when that influence is sustained, it changes you permanently. You begin to think differently, you begin to act differently, you begin to expect more. And those expectations begin to shape the world around you. Now here's a principle worth engraving into your consciousness. Relationships are mirrors. They reflect who you are and who you are becoming. And if your circle is chaotic, complacent, or cynical, it is likely reinforcing a version of you that needs to be released. But if your circle is intentional, focused, and expanding, then you are being refined daily. And the wealthy never stop refining their circle. They make room for the new without resentment for the old. They are grateful but not bound, loyal but not limited. And this balance is what keeps them growing without guilt. Because growth is not betrayal, it is obedience to potential. And anyone who cannot respect your evolution is silently voting against your destiny. So here's the law for this part. Declare it in the comments and let it rewire how you approach every connection in your life. Say, I guard my circle with discipline. I align only with growth, vision, and mutual elevation. That is how you begin to attract what you've been praying for, not by waiting, not by chasing, but by becoming. And once you become the kind of person who protects their environment, elevating people will find you. It is not chance, it is law. In part 6, we'll dive into the secret rhythm of time that the wealthy move by, how they perceive hours, days, and years differently than the masses, and how their internal clockwork multiplies results. If this message hit deep, share it. Speak your law below and take inventory of your circle. Because your environment is not just where you live, it's what you become. There is a 6th reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it lies in how they perceive and use time. To the wealthy, time is not just a measurement. It is a currency, a lever, a multiplier. They treat each hour not as something to pass, but as something to invest. Every tick of the clock either compounds their vision or distracts them from it. Most people spend time, the rich allocate it. They manage their minutes with the same precision others manage their money. Why? Because they understand a brutal truth. Money lost can be regained, time cannot. And so they treat each moment with respect. They don't rush, but they don't drift. They operate in a rhythm, a sacred cadence that aligns with their highest priorities and guards their deepest focus. That's how they gain weeks in what others waste in days. They don't chase time, they command it. This mindset shift, seeing time as a limited, non-renewable resource, changes everything. It alters what you say yes to. It refines your morning. It structures your evening. It demands intention. The rich know exactly what the first hour of their day is for. They wake with purpose, not to check a screen, but to program the mind, reflection, planning, mental rehearsal, quiet execution. While the world is still scattered, they are already moving, and this head start compounds. A day of clarity beats a week of confusion. They know that busyness is not productivity, and that action without direction is simply wasted movement. So they don't measure success by exhaustion, they measure it by progress, and that progress is mapped, not guessed. They live by a clock of consequence, where each hour either pushes the vision forward or exposes a gap to fix. Now contrast this with how most people treat time: scrolling without awareness, saying yes out of guilt, multitasking through mediocrity. The average person is pulled by the urgency of others, but the wealthy live by the urgency of purpose. Their time belongs to their mission, not to distractions, not to low-return conversations, not to drama. And because of that, they experience time differently. It stretches for them, it opens up, because where there is clarity, there is efficiency. And where there is efficiency, there is momentum. The rich compress years into months, not by working frantically, but by removing the unnecessary. They respect their minutes, they assign their hours, and the world responds. Here's something most never realize. The rich move slowly but accomplish fast. They walk with calm, they think before they speak, they pause before they act, because they understand the cost of misused time. The person who rushes everything often repeats everything, but the one who prepares, who plans, who acts with rhythm, achieves once what others must redo 5 times. The rich have patience with process, urgency with priorities, and clarity about sequence. They know what comes first, what matters most, and they don't let tomorrow steal the power of today, because they know this truth. The seed of wealth is always planted in the present moment. Let's go deeper. The rich are not time managers, they are energy managers. They match their highest output to their highest value task. They don't waste peak mental hours on shallow work. They don't burn their focus on decisions that could have been automated. They protect their prime thinking time as if it were gold, because to them it is. A clear hour of focused, undistracted strategy can move the needle more than 10 hours of reactive noise. So they plan their day not around meetings, but around momentum. Not around obligations, but around outputs. And this separation between activity and impact is one of the great dividers between those who drift and those who dominate. Now let's talk about long-term time. The rich think in decades. They don't just ask what feels good today. They ask what builds the life I want in 10 years. They make decisions that seem small now but grow enormous later. That's why they value routine. That's why they track progress. That's why they delay gratification. Because they're not just building a quarter, they're building a legacy. They look at time the way a master chess player looks at the board, not just at the current move, but at the chain of reactions it will create. And when you start thinking like that, your patience increases, your tolerance for distraction vanishes, and your power begins to rise. So here's the law I want you to write down. If you believe it, comment it below. Let it be your contract with time. Say, I move in purposeful rhythm. My time is sacred and my hours serve my vision. That one belief can eliminate half the noise in your life, because when you honor your time, you elevate your worth, and the world begins to treat you how you treat your own schedule. In Part 7, the final piece, we will bring everything together. We'll talk about legacy, what the rich really pass on, and how you can build not just wealth, but generational wisdom that outlives your body and multiplies beyond your lifetime. If this message resonated with your soul, share it, speak your law in the comments, subscribe for the finale, and above all, take back your time. Because every dream you've ever had is waiting inside your next hour. There is a 7th and final reason why the rich keep getting richer, and it goes beyond money, beyond systems, beyond even mindset. It is legacy. The rich think in generations. They understand that true wealth is not simply about accumulation, but transmission, about building something that outlives their body, something that multiplies in silence long after their name is spoken. Most people chase riches for what they can spend. The rich build wealth for what it can become. They're not playing for comfort, they're playing for impact. And the difference between the two is the difference between a spark and a fire that burns for 100 years. If you study the wealthiest families, you'll notice this pattern. They don't just pass on dollars, they pass on principles. They leave behind ways of thinking, ways of behaving, and those invisible assets become the foundation for a dynasty, a name that holds weight, a lineage that does not have to start from zero every generation. Legacy is not a mystery. It is not reserved for the elite. It is a byproduct of intentional living. The rich do not hope their children learn discipline. They model it. They do not hope their heirs understand value. They teach it. They create documents, philosophies, traditions, rituals. They write down what they learned. They speak into the next generation. And most of all, they think long enough for that vision to take root. While the average person is trying to survive the month, the wealthy are planning the next 50 years. They plant trees they may never sit under. They build systems that carry their name into the future. And they do it not out of ego, but out of stewardship. Because they understand, the best use of a powerful life is to ensure that others can rise from it. Legacy requires sacrifice. It requires a willingness to say, this choice isn't just about me, it's about who comes after me. It means turning off comfort and turning on responsibility. It means becoming the root so your children, your community, your tribe can grow as the branches. It means getting serious about how you live, what you allow, and what you teach through your words, your work, and your ways. The rich aren't just builders of things, they are transmitters of frameworks. They pass down codified values, how to think, how to act, how to recover, how to win. And that legacy begins in the present moment, with the decisions you make today, the patterns you reinforce, and the truths you embody when no one's watching. Let's go even deeper. There are two kinds of legacy. One is built by default, and the other by design. Default legacy is what most people leave. It's what they never said, what they never wrote down. It's a silent inheritance of unresolved wounds, unclear beliefs, and scattered habits. But legacy by design, that is intentional, structured, and powerful. It says, this is who we are. This is how we move. This is what we value. It is a philosophy of life passed down with precision. The rich don't wait until the end to create this. They start while they're building, while they're failing, while they're rising, and that's what makes it real. Because it's not a speech, it's a standard. And when that standard is repeated, modeled, and enforced, it becomes culture. And culture is what lasts when charisma fades. You don't need millions in the bank to create legacy. You need clarity. You need conviction. You need a structure for how you think, how you lead, how you serve. And once that structure is in place, you begin to replicate it through your children, through your team, through your voice, your content, your creation. Every person you impact becomes a carrier of the code. And that's how the rich multiply themselves, by transferring essence, not just resources. Because money without wisdom is dangerous, but wisdom with or without money, that creates builders, that creates self-generating power. And that is the true definition of wealth, transferable greatness. Now understand this, true legacy isn't just passed down, it is lived now. You're writing your legacy every day, in how you show up, in how you think under pressure, in how you speak when it's hard. You're training your future replacements with your current standards. And the rich know this. That's why they never lower the bar, even in private. They know their life is a blueprint for someone else's possibility, and they take that responsibility seriously. Because they know the greatest lives don't just succeed, they replicate. So here is the final law, the most sacred one. Say it aloud, write it down, declare it in the comments, let it seal your identity. I live for legacy. My life builds, multiplies, and transcends me. That is your anchor. That is your mission. That is your responsibility. Because you are not just here to succeed. You are here to shape the world after you. And when you live that way, the universe starts treating you differently. Resources appear. People align. Destiny accelerates. Because you're no longer just playing for yourself. You're building something bigger. And now the circle is complete. We've traveled through identity, systems, failure, relationships, time, and legacy. You now hold the 7 pillars of why the rich keep getting richer, not by chance but by choice, not by accident but by alignment. And you too can choose to step into that current. This video may be ending, but your transformation is only beginning. If this message shifted you, then say so. Share it with someone you love. Subscribe to continue the path, and most of all, live these laws. Don't just comment them, become them, because the future belongs to those who prepare for it now.